It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. My name is Chris. I'm a service tech here in Southern California. I'm just a guy that makes these videos and shares them. They originally started for my own employees. And then I hit the public button. It became what it is. And these videos are presented the way that they are. I try to be as real as possible in my videos. I try to show the honest me. I try to show, the issues that I run into, the weird technical things that I run into, and I just try to be as real as possible. Okay. I'm going to start this out, with a little rant. Sometimes I do this from time to time. I made a post yesterday. I made a post about new technicians coming into the industry. Okay. And I'm just basically going to give you the general idea. It's on all social platforms. I put it out there, or I should say LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I put it out there. And it's just my opinions. Okay. I've been in the industry for a little bit. I grew up working for my dad, and I learned the hard way. Okay. When I would ask for help, and again, this is not anything bad on my dad, not anything bad on the senior mechanic that I worked with. That was my mentor. It's just times were different, right? I was brought up in a time when people didn't have the answers. When I would work on things, I'd be like, "Hey, how does that work? Because it doesn't make sense to me." And the things that I was told was, "You need to ask your trade school teacher about that. They'll explain it to you. You know, look here, look there." But I could never get the answers, right? And if I did get an answer, I would question it, right? And I learned the hard way. I learned by messing up a bunch of stuff. Okay. I was thrown to the wolves. And as I'm now responsible for training people and my customer satisfaction and my technicians being happy, I've decided myself that I'm trying something different. And I'm trying to bring new guys up in a different way. I'm trying a different approach. I don't want to throw them to the wolves because it just doesn't make sense to me. It feels like there could be a better way. Okay. And I like to give my guys as much of an apprenticeship, as I can. Now, I do have to be practical and I understand. I can't have a technician shadowing me for 5 years. Okay. So I can't give them that much, but I give them as much as I can. Okay. My last apprentice, who's now a technician doing his own thing, still working for us, but I mean, he's not really working under me very much anymore. Right. He still relies on me here and there like anybody, but sometimes I'll call him and ask it. Like literally, I've called him, hey, you work on this isomatic ice machine a bunch. What am I looking for here? Right. Because we kind of ebb and flow. We grab information from both of us. Right. But with him, I basically had him ride with me for a year. Okay. Maybe just a little bit over a year. And when I say ride with me, he did have his own van. He shadowed me. Okay. Sometimes depending on the service call, the maintenance, the whatever, I would give him a head start. Right. I'd be like, hey, go out there, get started. I'll be there about a half hour, 45 minutes after you've gotten there. Introduce yourself to the manager, dig into it. That was like the evolution. So I started with him just watching me. And then I started letting him work a little bit more. I let him get his hands a little bit dirtier. And then I started giving him a head start to service calls. And then, it evolved to me going after he finished up with the call, meeting up with him and then walking through the entire call. Right. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that my way of doing things is the only way, but I am saying that the old school way of just telling people to jump into a van and figure it out, that isn't working. Okay. For all the people out there that are commenting on the posts in different places saying people need to man up, they need to grow up, they need to stop being treated so, soft. And, for people that are saying that, you have to understand this is a different time. The generation now, my perception of it, they don't want to be broken at 40 like I am or 41, right? Hey, Keith Peterson, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. You didn't need to do that, but I very much appreciate it. Okay. But back to what I was saying, the newer people in the trade and the newer people coming in, they don't want to be broken anymore, right? They want a better quality of life. And who are we to deny that to them, right? I try my best to make sure that the new people coming into the trade that I have any influence on are treated correctly and given the support that they need. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to hold their hand for 5 years and pat them on the back every time they make a mistake. No, okay? But we got to change some things up a little bit, okay? I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect technician, not a perfect business owner in any means, probably a horrible business owner, to be honest with you. I just try my best. And, I was reflecting through a lot of the comments and someone made a really good point, and forgive me, I'm butchering, I'm paraphrasing, but the topic of service came up and that kind of rang true with me. As a business, I'm here to serve my customers. That doesn't mean that I'm going to let my customers abuse me, but I'm here to serve them. I'm here to offer a service that solves some of their problems, and I want them to be satisfied. Okay. So in order to do that, my technicians that I send out to those jobs, they need to be trained as best as possible. So for the most part, the way that I do things now, and I haven't always done it like this, but the way that I do things now is I try to give them an opportunity, right? I try to give them a chance. I try to help them with as much knowledge. Now, I'm not going to hold their hand, like I said, the entire time, but I try to guide them towards the answers. And I feel like our industry as a whole needs to start adopting those kind of practices, a better apprenticeship program. Some people said, and I'll get to the comments here in a few minutes, but some people said in the comments of the post that I made, shoot, I lost my train of thought on that one. I was going off and I looked at the comment and then I got confused, but regardless, talking about service, right? Serving the customers. And it's just important to make sure that the technicians have the tools that they need, right, to get the job done. For the most part, I don't mind buying tools for my technicians, like physical tools, if it's going to make their job easier and it's going to benefit the company, right? So I feel like we need to do a better job, right, of training the new generations and give them a fighting chance. We have the biggest influx of new technology and new procedures and policies coming into this trade, in my opinion, than we've ever had. Okay. We have more new electronics, energy efficiency codes, refrigerants, safety things we have to do coming in now than we've ever had before. Artificial intelligence is coming in, and that's changing the way there's technical support stuff. Why not use these new tools that we have the ability at, and why not give these new guys a chance, and girls? It doesn't matter, male, female, whatever it may be. Okay. We need to give them a better chance and stop just expecting them to do what you and I had to do, because a good majority of the trade washed out when you and I came up in the trade, right? They didn't like it. They moved on to bigger, better things. Well, we can't afford to have new technicians that are entering this trade to leave the trade. We can't afford that right now because we have such a lack of technicians. So we need everybody we can, but we also need to give them the tools, right? So the post was also centered around businesses, because there's a good majority of these large, giant businesses that own several service companies. They've been making acquisitions all across the country. There's a lot of them. There really is. Maybe like 4 or 5 big players that have been doing that, big service companies. And not all of them, but a good majority of them, the model that they have, because they're driven by revenue. And let me say, there's nothing wrong with a business making money, because I have to make money to stay in business too. But my first priority is to make sure that my customers are satisfied, the equipment's fixed, right? And I charge for my time. I charge what I perceive to be the right amount of money for my time. And, we have a business model there, right? It's just so important that we, in my opinion, help the new generation coming up. Okay. So let's look at the chat real quick. Why do I only work with restaurants? That's just what we've always done. We've done other stuff. We've done construction work before. We've done minor residential work. We've done like office buildings and things like that, but it's just kind of always fallen back on restaurants. Let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah. If I miss anything, Free Funky says, would I eat all that time or charge the customer for 2 technicians? So that's a great question. Okay. In the beginning, when the technician is very, very new and he's serving no benefit to me or benefit to the customer by being on the job site, no, I do not charge for them at that time. As the technician starts to serve a benefit for the customer, I will typically do a reduced hourly rate, whatever their salary is, plus some extra money in there to just kind of break even once they are actually benefiting the customer. Okay. If they're going back and forth to the van to pick up parts and saving me from having to do that while I'm upstairs continuing my work, then that is something that I feel that I can charge the customer for. But I usually do a reduced amount. Now, once the technician gets more and more experience and they become more and more valuable to myself and to the customer, then the rate goes up and the rate goes up. Okay. So it's a scale that just kind of goes up based on the technician's skills and how they're, understanding things. So, my thing is that I work for a lot of customers, and I've worked for a lot of the same customers for a very, very long time. And the way that I've always thought about it is like this. I can rip off the customer, but if I rip them off, they're going to find out and they're going to be dissatisfied with me and they're going to leave me, right? They're going to not use me for their service work anymore. But if I'm honest to the customer, I do my service, right? I provide value. I fix the equipment in a timely fashion, and I'm honest about what I'm doing, and I just fix it, right? Instead of trying to make a quick buck off of them. The idea is that they're going to be happy with my service and they're going to continue to hire me the next time something breaks. And guess what? I don't have to break equipment. Equipment breaks on its own. So I don't have to do anything shady. All I have to do is be available, be honest, be fair, in my opinion, to the customer. And if they choose to call me back, and I hope they do, then I keep going back. Okay. All right. Let's get to the chat, see what else I'm going in here. Is Compton still too far to hire someone? Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I don't work in LA County, so Compton's definitely too far. Okay, let's see what else we got going on. And say again, thank you very much, Chipmunk, for the super chat. I really, really do appreciate that. I'm reading through the chat right now. I'm reading through here. Okay, so Freon Leon says, and he's talking about the technicians. Now, I might be butting into a conversation. So if you guys have something you want me to cover in the chat, throw it in caps lock and I'll read it if I get to it. If I miss your questions or comments, keep posting them or shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I can try to answer them through that way if we need to. Okay. Freon Leon says, but they, meaning the new technicians, also need to take work home and learn on their own time too. And there is truth in that. Okay. And we can go on a rant about that, but also as business owners, managers, people in a position that dictates people's hours, we need to remember too that if we work these technicians to the bone and they are just downright exhausted when they get off work, they're not going to do anything to better their education. And it's not benefiting you nor them. It might be benefiting you in the short term, but it's not helping you as a business owner in the long term. If we let these technicians work the amount of hours that they want to work, right? When we offer them extra hours, sometimes there's optional stuff. Hey, I've got an extra call. Do you want to take it? And they say, hey, man, and I'll say, hey, you don't have to. We can make them wait till tomorrow, but they're willing to pay overtime if you want it. No, you know what? I want to go spend some time with my kid. Okay, cool. Do it. We try to do that as much as possible. The bigger the business gets, the harder it is for companies to be able to do that kind of stuff and be able to have heart. I'm a small family business, so we try to think about our technicians like they're our own family. Obviously, we have to make money, right? As a business, we have to cover our overhead, make a profit, but we also want to make sure that the technicians are taken care of too. So that's talking about new guys entering the industry. But, there's the other side of companies wanting to throw those new guys, I'm sorry, not the other side, but I mean, the flip side of what I'm trying to do is the companies that hire these technicians straight out of trade school, give them a 2-week crash course and send them out there to figure it out. Now I'm following one of those companies right now, and I've followed other companies like that before. And it's the same thing. If you hear of these companies, there's several different names. I'm not naming one specific company, but if you've heard of these companies and you're an experienced person, you probably know what happens. And a good majority of the time when these acquisitions happen, a good amount of technicians are going to leave the company. They typically do because they know what's coming. They know the changes that are going to happen. Good or bad, they leave the company. Okay. And what a lot of these companies tend to do is lower their rates. They're kind of trying to lowball things, right, to kind of dominate the market. And then they send out inexperienced technicians so that even though they're lowballing things, they're profiting like crazy. You see the business model there? Instead of sending a solid technician out there, charging for his time and making a decent profit, you send out an apprentice. You charge whatever that discounted rate is, but you still have a huge profit in that rate because those technicians cost them less. And it doesn't make sense. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying what a lot of these companies do. Okay. If you're a new guy coming into the industry, think twice about working for one of those companies. Do your research. Someone asked me, because I made a comment in that post too about trade schools. And I said that, shame on trade schools for not better educating the new students, the students that leave the school when they graduate, not better educating them. Okay. And I got a lot of pushback on that, and fair point. Okay. But I still stand firm and say that majority of the trade schools out there don't do a great job of educating their students and teaching them about the realities of this business. Now, there is a small fraction, and that fraction is growing bigger and bigger because you have more people that are concerned about the industry and more people that want to help. But there's a small group of those trade schools that are doing a great job right now. There really is. Okay. They have great instructors. They have great people. And they really are training these kids. But also, we cannot expect a trade school, okay, at max a 2-year program going to night school or an 18-month program, full time. You're not going to learn everything in an 18-month period. You're not going to learn everything in a 6-month period, a 3-month period. Okay. I don't get political on this channel, but I will say that one thing that does happen, and I don't know all the details to this, but I understand it just enough, is that these schools, a good majority of the time, to be able to get scholarship funds to be applicable for their school, they have to have graduation rates and pass rates and different metrics that they have to meet. And so schools, the private schools, sometimes are pushed, in my opinion, these are my opinions, are pushed in a corner to where they feel like they have to start passing more students to keep the scholarship money coming in or the grant money or whatever it may be, right? So, you know, it's a vicious circle of what's happening here. But right now we have an influx of these giant companies just throwing new guys out there, and they're doing themselves. They're hurting the industry and they're hurting the new technicians because we're burning the new technicians out. We're not giving them an opportunity to grow. Okay. So how can trade schools better educate students or on employers, right? How can trade schools better prepare these kids for the real world scenario? Be honest with them. Don't inflate the wages. Don't let your marketing department of the trade school dictate what you tell the students they're going to make when they leave the industry, or when they enter the industry. Does that make sense? Because a lot of these trade schools, they have marketing departments and you know, statements and different things and things that they teach, the marketing department can have an influence on. Okay, so they want to make things look better. So be honest with these students as trade teachers. Just be honest. Just tell them, look, it's going to be rough. You're not going to start a business the day you leave trade school. And I'll go on that high horse too. This is just I'm up on a soapbox today, right? Yeah, I guess I should chill out with that. But we have to do better as an industry. Okay. We have to train the new guys better. We have to give them a fighting chance. Give them more of an apprenticeship. Just give it to them, right? Teach them. But you also, as a business owner, and this is just part of being a business owner. Okay, so worst case scenario, and I've had it happen. You put an entire year into training a new apprentice, and then just before the year's up, the apprentice leaves for a $2 an hour raise and goes to work for someone else. I've had it happen. It's a bummer. It really is. It's just one of those things. And I learned from that. Okay. Because I'm not saying that I wasn't in the wrong. I'm not saying that I'm the best business owner. I told you, or if you were listening earlier, I'm probably not the best business owner, but I've had to learn that not only do I need to give them education value, but I need to make sure that they're taken care of financially too, you know, and I need to pay better attention to that kind of stuff, especially in this day and age. So it does happen. I just have to do my best to try to keep that technician happy. And that's kind of how I do it. Okay. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat right now. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Thank you so very much, Preston, for that super chat. I really do appreciate it. So Preston says that he works for a small company. He's worked 13 hours and they want him to run after hours calls. You said you're exhausted and they said it's business. 13 hours is a lot. Should I feel bad? Preston? Okay, so here's the thing. I can't tell you if 13 hours for me, I'll probably push past that when I'm on call. I have. It doesn't happen all the time, right? But you know your limits. Now, understand something though. Your limits may or may not be okay with your company that you're working for, okay? But you have to do what's right for you. So you take care of yourself. If 13 hours makes you physically exhausted and you just don't feel comfortable driving or working, hey, I'm not saying I can do better than you or worse than you, but I'm saying you got to do you. Just understand, you know, that your service company may not like that, but hey, you know what? You still got to do what's best for you and your family, okay? This is a job. Even though I'm a business owner, this is a job. It's not worth your life, okay? Do as I say, not as I do, with that fact right now. This job is not worth your life, okay? Because it twists inside of me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week because of this job. Okay. That's just life. And I do that to myself because I dwell on things. I'm just OCD about a lot of stuff. I've got my own internal issues, but like I let this just twist me alive. Don't let it do it to you. Okay. Remember that, you know, you need to be available. You need to be open with your employer. A really good piece of advice to a new technician is know this. You know, an interview, a job interview is for two parties, the employer and the employee. It's not just an employer. It's not a one-sided interview. Okay. The employee has the right to ask just as many questions as the employer does too. So you as a technician need to research, find out what are your hours? Do you expect me to work more than this many hours? You know, what happens if I need some time off? Like, you need to ask those questions, right? And it doesn't need to be demanding. You don't need to be a jerk, but the parties need to mutually decide that you guys, you know, the employer and the employee want to work together, right? So it's a two-sided decision there, two-sided interview. Okay. Let's see. Reading through here. You once started at 7 and didn't get home until midnight with an early morning install that day. Sometimes it happens. I mean, hey, I've got some horror stories too. And I'm not saying that everybody should be wrapped in bubble wrap and never have to experience frustration. This job is a stressful job, and we all need to understand that. I think the trade schools need to kind of explain that kind of stuff too. Okay. I think that trade schools, if they want to do better, community college or for profit, either way, they need to, be honest about what this trade offers. This trade offers a job for someone who has a neurodivergent brain, right? Come on, let's be honest. It's not just, we're not talking about salesmen, people that aren't actually doing the physical work. There is salesmen that work too, by the way. I'm not saying that all salesmen are bad, okay? But when you're dealing with a residential sales tide, it tends to be a little bit slimier. When you get into the installers and the actual service technicians that are out there turning wrenches, they again, losing my train of thought there for a minute. Yeah, anyways, totally brain fart for a sec, but you guys get the point. Okay. I'm going to move on to other topics. And I got a couple other questions that people have asked that I want to cover. So let's get to it real quick. I had a video out this last week. The walk-in freezer is too warm. And someone was asking questions about using like ground source as a heat transfer method, right? That's where you run pipes down into the ground and you use the grounds, assuming that the ground is cooler than the condensing temp, right? And that's going to either absorb or reject certain heat into whatever fluid you're passing through it. Ground source isn't super popular in Southern California. I would imagine some of it has to do with earthquakes, but there is stuff on the big industrial side. They'll use it, but you're not seeing that in the residential or the light commercial side right now. It's just not happening. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Are there any rooftop units designed for high heat areas? So he's asking because I made a statement in the video that I think some sort of variable capacity equipment would be good for this customer. And he's asking because I was having issues with high temperatures, right? So one of the big difficult things about sizing refrigeration equipment, whether it be high temp like air conditioning, low temp like refrigeration, right? Is that if we have single compressor systems that don't have any sort of varying capacity, that system is designed for the hottest day of the year. And let's just say, I don't have the equipment data in front of me, but let's just say it's a 2-ton refrigeration system when it's 120 degrees outside, right? But as the temperature drops to 50 degrees, like we get here in Southern California in our winter, right? That 2-ton, 2-horsepower system, whatever it is, doubles in size because the delivered capacity increases as the condensing temperature drops. Okay. So then the equipment becomes massively oversized and it just causes problems. So the gentleman's question is there equipment that is designed for the high ambient temperatures? If it's a single compressor system, there's a few things you can do by increasing the condenser size slightly, but there's a fine line and a cliff that you can fall off if you oversize the condenser too big. Then you run into refrigeration problems and stuff. So is there a system that's designed for high heat? I mean, kind of. You can kind of design it a little bit more extreme. But when you do that, remember that as the condensing temperature drops in the wintertime, that system capacity goes straight up. And that causes more problems too. Because if your system capacity goes up, then your evaporator TD is going to change, and that's going to affect how cold or warm your coil gets, and that's just going to lead to a lot of problems, okay? So some sort of variable capacity, digital compressors, things like that are really going to get better as they become cheaper and cheaper, and they're going to help us out on the light commercial side. In the supermarket side, the big heavy industrial stuff, they have a lot more capacity control. They use parallel systems, a lot more digital systems, because they're more concerned about saving the pennies, because the profit margins on supermarket, grocery stores and stuff is so small. So they have to do everything they can to try to stay profitable. So they invest heavily in new technology in the refrigeration equipment. Super expensive, not cheap enough for the light commercial side yet, but it's coming this way. and then we'll be able to have better design systems. Let's see. So no one uses their air conditioning in Southern California when the air temperature outside is 50. Yeah, you know, we still do just a little bit, but we also don't know what cold is here. Okay. We can also have a winter. I can remember being a kid, Christmas time, and it's 85, 90 degrees outside and the Santa Ana winds are blowing. Like, I mean, we have some really warm winters, but then we have just mild winters like this last one. It was like 55, 60 degrees most of the winter. So just, you know, we don't even know what cold is, basically. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. What refrigeration load calc software do you use? I go through a few different ones. I like to kind of compare what different load calculation softwares are doing and what they're saying and trying to figure out why one, you know, is more aggressive or less aggressive, depending on, you know, whatever reason. So I'm trying to figure that out. So I will oftentimes use the Parker Sporlin Virtual Engineer for sizing line sizes and different things like that. You can, again, that's Virtual Engineer. If you guys haven't checked that out, that's really cool. It helps you to size expansion valves, dryers, solenoid valves, refrigerant lines. It does a great job. You know, I mean, it just really does a great job of explaining a few more things and helping you to find the right equipment size, right? And then I'll use, you know, Heatcraft's refrigeration load calculation software, Russell's load calculation software. I think if I remember right, it's been a while since I've gone, but I think there's a Trenton one you can get too. I think I'm almost positive there's a Trenton one. I probably have it on my computer, and I'll just kind of look at the different ones and see what kind of equipment they recommend, what the capacity changes, just because I'm always curious. I like to figure things out, right? That's why I said earlier, this trade is really good for people that have neurodivergent brains. You know, that's just the idea that you think a little bit differently than other people. That's the way that I perceive neurodivergent. But you just go about things differently, right? And so, you know, I tend to be very curious. Like, one load calculation software tells me one thing, so I do it on another one, and then it starts making me think, well, why is this number different than this number? Who's right? Who's wrong? And then I start just going down this rabbit hole of researching things. Now, that can also be crippling too, because there's times that I go down a rabbit hole. I'll come in my office right here to do work for my refrigeration business, and I'm doing a quote. And next thing you know, I'm looking up video information, and I get distracted really easily too. And then you start going down rabbit holes because you can't let something go. So there's times that it can be a superpower in this industry, to say the least. All right. Why the new black hoses for my refrigerant system? They're just the field piece refrigerant hoses. It was time for some new hoses, and I got those. They're pretty cool. I don't mind the black. They have little caps on them to tell you what, you know, down at the end. So you don't need the entire hose. But I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty smart on field pieces part, because they're not manufacturing multiple colors. They're just manufacturing a tiny little plastic piece of different colors. And then the rest, the hoses are just all identical. So, you know, probably gives them the ability to make a little bit more of a profit and reduce the cost and make them more competitive in the market. Have I ever seen a Paragon? I don't know that, Melvin. I don't know what that is. I would have to research it. I might know. I don't know. All right. Let's see what else we got. What refrigeration load? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So you're asking, do I use Conduit Tech for my load calculation software? No, because I'm not doing residential load calculations. Conduit Tech is a LiDAR app for your iPad. And basically, you can take a LiDAR scan of the building, and then they're working on, I think they just got ACA approved, I think, and they can give you an actual load calculation using Manual J now too. So yeah, I haven't used that yet. The one thing I will say is my understanding, I'm not a representative, I'm not affiliated with them, but I just do a little bit of research. But my understanding is that with the Conduit Tech, it only works with the iPad Pro. That's the only one. I don't know why it doesn't work with the iPod or iPhone Pro or whatever, Pro Max, because that has LiDAR too. But anyways, whatever. That's a whole nother thing. But it has something about the LiDAR, so it has to be the iPad Pro. See what else I got going on here. Have I ever seen a Paragon defrost clock power 3 and 4? I'm assuming that says at the same time. Yes, I have seen that. And it's usually the back of the clock will be melted. When you pull it out, look at it, it'll just be completely melted, and the terminal strips right there are just making contact together. So, all right. Let's see what we got going on here. All right. So let me get to a couple more things on my list here. Reading through that one. Oh, so great. In that video on the walk-in freezer, I went ahead and put a mister on that condenser. And this gentleman's asking me, I'm assuming gentleman, this person is asking me if that will create a calcium issue on the condenser. Yes, very much so. So as the water evaporates, the minerals stay. They'll attach themselves to the condenser coil, and then they'll reduce the heat transfer of the condenser coil, which is going to cause some problems. So that's why I said I don't like running misters. I really don't. Sometimes because nobody wants to spend the money to fix the equipment correctly, you got to do what you got to do to get the equipment running. And that's the case here. We had to put a mister on it, and that's the only thing that's keeping it going without potentially damaging the brand new compressor right now. And, you know, just like it did the old one. So reading through here right now. I had a video where I worked on a Linux air conditioner and it had a bad board, and I had to do just like a quick fix with the time delay to get the equipment going. This gentleman wanted to know, would it be worthwhile at this point to refurbish the circuit board instead of getting a new circuit board because they're back ordered? I mean, it's a possibility. You know, I mean, the equipment's working right now, so it's not really hurting anything. The only issue is that, what is it, second and third stage are starting at the same time. So that's not the greatest thing. But as far as power consumption, it's a little bit hard on the equipment, I guess, but you know, who knows? But as far as refurbishing the boards, that's still really difficult one for me, because how do I warranty that? You know, the customer doesn't want to have to keep calling me back. I'm working for corporate accounts. So there's like, you have to understand something. When you start working for these corporate accounts, I have understanding with facility managers, and I know what needs to be fixed. So I'm not getting micromanaged. And at the same time, I'm not asking the facilities director 50 billion questions every single day. Hey, do I have to fix this? Hey, do I have to fix this? Can I, you know, for the most part, I have a not to exceed value, and I can actually exceed that not to exceed value if I know that the customer is going to have to fix this equipment. So what I mean is, I got a walk-in freezer down and it has a bad compressor at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, and they've got a fully stocked walk-in freezer. I don't have to wake up a facilities director to change that compressor. I've got approval to get it done, and to get it done right, whatever it takes. If I got to get a crane in the middle of the night, I got to get a crane in the middle of the night. Never had to do that. Cross my fingers. I do have one customer that I am thinking in my head, and I know that day is coming. They have a discus compressor in their rack on the roof. Nothing wrong with it, but I know that if that thing fails, I'm going to need a crane because of the roof operation. I can't get that compressor on the roof at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night without a crane. Like, it's going to be a problem, right? But anyways, going off on a tangent, I have approval to fix certain things, right? So, but I know what the customers want, and I'll communicate. You know, after I do a big compressor job, I'll call the facilities director then and say, hey, just want to let you know, we did have a big thing. I got it operational for you. I did this all. Are you okay with this? They will typically say, yes, thank you very much for doing it. You know, I will, in certain situations, only replace what needs to be replaced. You know, I'm not necessarily going to make a decision and say, you know what, it's time to put an entire condenser unit on this roof without calling the facilities director, but I have approval to change a compressor and get it done. So, but still, they don't want me to call them, and they don't want to have to call me a million times. So as far as repairing circuit boards, I can't really take that liability on, because I can't really warranty that. And they don't want to have to try it. They just kind of want it fixed, and they want to be done with it. So if they got to spend a couple extra dollars just to have peace of mind and just be done with it, they'll, you know, they usually want to do that. All right, let's go through my list here. Okay, I'm going to get to the chat right now and seeing what's going on in here. Yeah, if you guys do, oh, see, people, apparently I was scratching my nose over here. I think it's time to trim the nose hairs, huh? Reading through here. How would you handle pulling a vacuum on a system that looks to be heavily contaminated with moisture? The vacuum pump oil kept turning to mayonnaise even after multiple nitrogen purges. Whew, man, Steven. Okay, in a situation like that, that's when you really have to start evaluating the cost of equipment replacement. You need to get the customer involved. I don't know the severity of it. Is it something that has to be fixed today, or can they make some decisions? I don't know what kind of equipment you're talking about. It could be a small reach-in cooler. Mind you, we just had one of those under warranty through one of the biggest refrigeration manufacturers. Another service tech, not myself, went out and found that the unit had a bad hot gas condensate heater. It was an R290 refrigerator, a little 27-inch refrigerator, tiny one, right? Single door. And had a bad hot gas condensate heater. And so under warranty. We got a new hot gas condensate heater, liquid line filter dryer, and we went out and we did the repair. We pulled out the condensate heater. We put the new one in. We put the dryer in. We went to go pull the evacuation, and the technician that was there, the oil on his vacuum pump kept turning milky. Changed the oil 2, 3, 4 times, and then called me and said, dude, we got a problem here. And then we started thinking about it. We're like, okay, condensate heater, it might have been iced up. Who knows? It condensated. Eventually that moisture pulled into the system. There could have been water in the pan when the heater leaked. Who knows? Something happened. The system was full of moisture, right? So the manufacturer, we called them and we're like, hey, we just got done making these repairs and we're trying to pull this vacuum and this oil's trashed. It's full of moisture. This is where the leak was, you know, and they made a decision. You know what? Stop what you're doing. They paid us for all of our time, all the warranty parts, and they sent the customer a new refrigerator because they looked at the cost comparison of amount of service that was going to go in, more than likely, you know, dryer changes, compressor changes, the cost of a new box. They just sent them a new box. So when you run into moisture contamination issues like that, it's time to really start talking to the customer. Is this a residential air conditioner? Dude, it's probably time to change it. Okay. It really is. That compressor, at least, condensing unit, at least, but even cleaning and getting all that moisture out of the system, that's going to be a challenge, you know, depending on, is the evaporator down below, up above? I mean, there's lots of variables that go into that, right? But you get into giant, heavy industrial supermarket stuff, and it's not cost feasible just to change out a system when they got a little moisture in there, right? So supermarket guys know, and they have, a good majority of them had to deal with massive amounts of moisture because of random reasons, and they got to clean a system up. So that's when you come into shell type dryers with mechanical connections, with isolation valves, where you can bypass a filter. You can do a series of liquid line filter dryer changes, letting those absorb a good amount of the moisture. There's a lot of different things they have to do. They have redundancy built in. They have to fix equipment, right? So it really depends on the cost of the equipment and what the customer's budget is. You just need to be honest with them. Hey, this compressor is going to have some problems. There's this much moisture. It's not going to last that long. You know, make them understand that before you continue your repairs. Let me take a drink here, see what else is going on. Do I service any Bryant equipment? Do I have any Bryant branded RTUs where I'm at? Yeah, it's just not very common because I deal with mostly commercial stuff. But I mean, I've sold, I think a year or two ago, I sold a 4-ton Bryant package unit. I think it was a heat pump actually on a roof when I was working out in the Coachella Valley. I've sold a few of those. So I do sell Bryant every once in a while, but I mean, we try to get the carrier stuff, and then that was just what was available. It's just same stuff, right? But yeah, I don't deal with it a lot. All right, let's see what else. Ike says he doesn't reuse recovered refrigerant. He always does new. Yeah, I have to reuse refrigerant a lot. So we will take precautions. Like for instance, if I'm putting refrigerant into a recovery cylinder that I think is used or contaminated, I will always run dryers before and after. And what I mean by that is my recovery cylinders, I will buy them from the supply house, then I will swap them. The supply house have a program where I just swap the tanks out for an empty one. So I bring in my recovery cylinder, I get an empty recovery cylinder, then that one gets cleaned out, and then I just keep paying for a swap fee. So when I do that, you know, sometimes you can look at the recovery cylinder and it just looks beat down, and it's like, and you can shake it and you can hear stuff in there, and it's like, yeah, no, we're going to filter in, we're going to filter out. So I get what I call recovery dryers, but they're just liquid line filter dryers, male female connections, so they can thread right onto a manifold gauge set or onto a recovery cylinder. You can also get flare with a tiny hose, and then I just run things through the dryers as I'm charging and recovering if I'm worried about it. Total Tech says hot gas condensate heater. Total Tech says that he has always called it a discharge condensate loop. Who even calls it that? Yeah, we've always called them a hot gas condensate heater because that's what it is. It's a condensate heater. It's just not an electric one. Because what do you call an electric condensate heater? I mean, I call it an electric condensate heater. So yeah, that's just, you know, it is what it is. Benjamin, would I work in the Irvine Tustin? It's an OC, but kind of on the edge. Yeah, I'm actually working in Mission Viejo tomorrow. So yeah, I work in that area occasionally. I have a couple customers out there. Some of my customers have closed locations in those areas, but yeah, I work in the Inland Empire, South Orange County, just a little bit into LA County. but not, I usually don't like, it just depends on the customer. So, but yeah, if you have something, reach out to me. My email is hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Reading through the chat right now. If I miss anything, people, there's a lot of comments going on in here. Feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. What's my preferred brand of AC that my company installs and services? I mean, I really, really liked the Linux Prodigy 2. I mean, I've always liked Linux equipment. They're one of my favorite package units. I do like the lower end carrier equipment as far as package units, but really it just kind of, I typically go back with what the building was designed with. Unless I just really have issues. You know, as much as I don't like installing York package units, I will still install them on restaurants that were designed for York, because if I can avoid an adapter curb, that's better. Anytime you can avoid an adapter curb on a package unit, you're better off, right? So if you keep the equipment what it is, that's what it was designed for. In theory, the ductwork is going to be kind of designed for the equipment, right? But we all know that 99% of the ductwork is undersized out there. But still, I try to avoid an adapter curb, because if you do have undersized ductwork, throwing an adapter curb is going to increase static pressures and reduce airflow even more. It's minute, but every little bit helps. So, you know, I just try to go back with what's there, but like, I really do enjoy and feel very comfortable working on Linux equipment, carrier equipment. Those are my two favorites. All right. When I use a dryer for recovery, do I use a new one each time? It just depends. Sometimes I'll save the caps. I know it's not ideal, but most of the time it's part of my recovery fee. It's built into it. So occasionally I will reuse it. Like, let's say I'm doing the system in and out. Sometimes I'll use the same one, you know, going in as I'm going out with or whatever. But for the most part, it's built into my recovery fee. So yeah, I can do a new dryer every time. No big deal. And again, I'm not saying my way is the only way. All right. You guys can probably all think, they say, hey, he's an idiot for thinking that way. Who knows, you know? What's a good cheap setup for a non-manifold vacuum? Mr. Green, are you talking micron gauge? Micron gauge, I no affiliation with them, but I like the Blue Vac. And I also like the Field Piece micron gauge. Both of those are great. I like that the Blue Vac works with, they have that really cool app that was built by Measure Quick. So it's got graphing features and stuff. And I really like the graphing feature when I'm doing an evacuation. It really is awesome to see. And if you just watch any of my videos, and you'll see me when I do recovery and stuff like that, you'll see the app that I use. And watching the recovery on there with the graph, with the needles going up and down, it really helps me to understand evacuation so much better and know what's going on when it's rising. Because, you know, as it's in its decay test, it's really awesome to see on a graph. You can see the trending data as the rise is starting to arc away and back down. You can tell that, you know, that's more or less just a little bit of moisture in the system. And there's just really cool things you can see on the graph. All right. So yeah, I like those as far as micron gauges. The AccuTools True Blue hoses, the big giant Smurf boners from AccuTools, those are cool. Smurf boner is reference to my buddy Dave over NorCal Dave. Has an awesome channel. You guys want to go check it out. If one of the moderators can throw Dave's channel link into the chat, that'd be really great. Yeah, really funny refrigeration dude, old school guy, really awesome dude. So definitely go check out his channel. How big is the discus compressor I mentioned earlier? It's probably just like a 3 or 4 ton low temp compressor. So it's not too big. Did I have a chance to look into the Captive Air's new Paragon units? I've seen them. I have a lot of worries about the Paragon DOAS units. And one of my biggest issues is that as of the last time I checked, which was probably 6 months ago, they weren't doing like in-person training on that equipment yet, as far as like seminars and different things. And I just want, before I really start pushing equipment, I want to make sure that the industry is ready for that equipment. And what I mean by that is of course I want to sell equipment and I want to make money selling equipment and I want my business to be different than others. But at the same time, I care about the industry. So I want to make sure before I start selling a lot of that equipment that the industry is ready for that kind of stuff, because it's not just me that has to work on this kind of stuff. So anyways, but yeah, I do like that. I just want more training on it and I want the industry to have more training on it. And it seems nice, but I also worry about the price of the parts, right? I know that they have crazy warranties on those Paragon DOAS units from Captive Air. I've talked to technicians about like condenser fan motor warranties and stuff, but those condenser fan motors, I mean, from the look of them, they have to be at least $3,000 customer cost, right? For a brand new one when they do have to finally buy one of those. So we got to be careful about making sure that this stuff's affordable. Last thing I want to do is to sell 10 of these to my customer and then them regret that decision 8 or 9 years from now. So I'm not saying that the Captive Air stuff is bad at all. I'm just saying it's such new technology for the light commercial side that I want to make sure we're ready for it before I really start pushing it down the customer's throats. And so with that being said, I've been doing more and more research. I really do like what they can do with that DOAS unit. I think it's awesome. And I know of some places where that would amazingly help my customers, because I have a couple locations that have no makeup air units in the building, right? And I've talked about these before. It's a customer that bought into a smart hood system, and it was made by a company called Maylink. The exhaust fans would slow down and speed up based on smoke and temperature. And basically the buildings were air balanced at low speed on that hood system. So it would slow down and speed up as the demand went up, right? But the customer has since figured out that they invested all this money into that equipment and they regret it now, and they're bypassing those systems. Well, when they bypass those systems, the exhaust fans that were variable speed, that were direct drive, that were ran by VFDs, no longer have a speed control in them. So they run at 100%. And so that creates a problem for the air balance in the building. So then we have to start bringing in the outside air through the ACs. And when you bring in the outside air through the ACs, you reduce the AC's capacity. And, that creates temperature problems in the building. So if we had some of those DOAS units, dedicated outdoor air systems, 100% outdoor air units, or convertible to where they can still use some of the building's air and some of the outside air, but they could better air balance these buildings with truly conditioned air, that would make the customer's equipment last so much longer. Because these ACs that we're pulling in all that outside air through, that are just standard ACs, they're not designed to be bringing in 110-degree air in the middle of the summer, right? As return air. So think about that. That's the return air, because you're using the outside air dampers as the return. So it's drawing in 100% outside air. And that evaporator was never designed to have 110-degree evaporator temperatures. So anyways, but if I had some of those DOAS units, that would amazingly help my customers. So has anyone, either residential or commercial, reached out to me for my okay. So has anybody ever asked me to consult on new builds? No. I've worked with tool companies doing like beta testing, like Field Piece, and I think there was another one somewhere in there where I've done beta testing for, where they would just ask my opinion on tools. But no, I've never had a manufacturer. Well, no, I take that back. When Heatcraft Refrigeration has asked for my opinions, I don't know if they used any of my opinions, but yeah, I've done a little bit of work with them talking about that kind of stuff. But not really, other than that. Reaching through the chat right now. See, Jason is saying DOAS, yeah. And then he's saying DOAS is not comfort cooling, it's air tempering. That's true, yeah. And that's why on the Captive Air ones, they'll do the mixture, but they size it correctly to where you can run 100% outside air. If they size, depending on how they size it. Reading through here right now. For the newbies, listen to the equipment, not the music. Yeah, 100%. I talk about that as much as possible. When you're up on a roof as a new technician, in a perfect world, when you have time and you're just doing a maintenance, you're just walking around, you're cleaning equipment, take pictures of the equipment. So that way, when you go home, you can do a little bit of research. And, but when you're on the roof, listen, that's one of the things you can do too. Use your senses. This is for experienced people too. When you're up on a roof, listen to the equipment, because listening and just getting used to the sounds on that roof is going to help you. There's some customers, I've even shown it on video, where I'll climb up a roof ladder and I could hear a bearing across the roof going bad. I wasn't there to work on that piece of equipment. I was there to work on, an air exhaust fan, or who knows what it was, right? And I could just hear something across the roof, and I'll just go down and tell the customer, hey, I'm up here working on this. Just so you know, I can hear something over there is making a really loud noise. It's working, but you want to create a work order, I can dig into that and save you some headaches. I try to look out for my customer as much as possible. You can't do that if you have headphones on and you can't hear the job. Plus, it's a safety thing. If you're up on a roof, like I get easily scared. Okay. I know I'm different, right? So I'll be up on a roof and I'll know someone's coming. Like one of the technicians that I work with, I know he's going to be there in a few minutes, but I'll be on the roof and I'll be doing what I need to do. And when I get scared easily, right? So if I have headphones on, I'm going to get even more scared, right? So yeah, I don't know. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. How long for commercial customers to pay? I'm assuming you're asking me how long is it taking for customers to pay? When you are working with the chain accounts, it's a pain in the butt. It is a pain in the butt. It really is. And some of the things that the chain accounts are doing is they are basically getting us as a service company to start doing some of their accounting for them. So when we deal with these apps where we have to check in, like the IVR apps, when we are submitting invoices through their IVR apps that they use that are also accounting systems for them, we have to itemize and categorize where the repairs go for the type of equipment we're working on at that customer. So you got to deal with that kind of stuff. And then also you got to deal with the politics of working for corporate accounts, because a good majority of them, the way that the accounting system works is when I complete a job, someone has to sign off on that job. Once they sign off on that job, it gets escalated to the facilities department. The facilities make sure it's okay. Depending on the cost of the repair, the facilities will then forward it on to their boss, someone in the whoever in the office, right? And once all of those steps have been taken, then they will submit the invoice for payment, of which will be 30 to 45 days. But sometimes it might take them a week for everybody to get through that approval process. And even though it's already been approved, it's just dumb corporate games you have to play sometimes. So you got to kind of really keep your eye on things. You can't let customers get out of hand. That's where it's really easy. You sometimes wonder, if you hear the rumors and the horror stories of restaurants that have filed bankruptcy and service companies losing out tons and tons of money, because it's happened to me too. It's happened to my friends. You wonder how someone can lose track of that much money when that stuff happens. But when you're dealing with corporate accounts, the problem is that there's always out there money floating, and you're always financing the customer in their own way, right? Because they're not paying your invoice. So they're borrowing your money, right? And so anyways, there's some games you have to play and things you have to know. It can take, I'd say, the fastest you're going to get paid with one of these commercial corporate customers is 45 days. That's the fastest. And that doesn't always happen. So, Steve says, all the sounds on the roof are important. You really wish you heard. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. If you roof access has a padlock, take a lock with you. Oh, wow. So someone locked the roof hatch on him. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Yeah, that sucks, man. I've had doors get shut, but never had a roof hatch do that. That's crazy, crazy. Who is this right now? Oh gosh, this AC is driving me nuts. I've got an AC that is just being a pain in my butt that keeps having problems. All right. I am ready to wrap this up because it is dinner time. I really appreciate you guys making it to the end of the stream. Thank you so very much for coming in. Thanks for listening to me rant. For those that came in here to listen to me talk about the posts that I made on social media, go back to the beginning of the stream. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' opinions are. Do you think that new technicians are too soft? Do you think that we should do better at training them? Or do you think that the new technicians should just work just as hard as you and I did when we were coming up in the industry? I'm more of the middle ground person. I want to make sure they are taken care of and they have the tools they need to become better technicians so they can benefit me and we can work together and we can grow as a company with them. That's how I do things, but I understand other people have their own opinions. So leave it down in the comments. Shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to cue up the outro music. I really, really do appreciate you guys. Sometimes I post silly things on social media, but hopefully I try to be as honest as possible, and I hope you guys appreciate that. So All right. For those of you that are still here. So this weekend, I took my dogs out to the lake. We went last weekend to the lake. We rented a boat with my kids and my wife. And this weekend, we wanted to go back and we wanted to take the dogs. So we took our paddle boards up there. We took the dogs out. When I got to the lake, I got my pup right here, Luke. Come here, buddy. Come say hi. Oh, it's my buddy Luke right here. Okay. He's a silver lab. And then we got Rory over here. Oh, hi. Say hi. Rory's a Australian Shepherd. But we got to the lake. Luke naturally likes water, right? So he kind of walks in the water with his paws. And I was like, you know what? He's having fun. I took his leash off. I said, get wet, buddy. He goes out into the water a little bit more, starts swimming around, having a blast. And then the dumbass sees a duck. He took off across the lake. I'm not kidding with you. 70, 80 feet from me. And I'm over here going, what do? He's never swam this far, this much. He weighs like 75 pounds. I'm like, what do I do? Start pulling my clothes off real quick. I'm in my board shorts already. I jump in the water. I get about halfway out to him. And I'm sitting here thinking, what am I going to do? This dude's across the cove that I'm in now, going to an island. And I'm like, what the? And he's chasing a damn duck, just swimming above the water, right? And I'm like, so I'm halfway out to him and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm getting exhausted. And I'm like, what am I going to do when I get him? I have a 75-pound lab that I've got to drag back and tread water and him and I both not drown, right? But then about that time when I start thinking that, his dumbass turns around, starts swimming back and just decides he's not going to chase the duck anymore. You got to love dogs. That was awesome though. It's funny to laugh about now. And then I put him on a paddleboard. I put my other dog on a paddleboard. My Australian Shepherd, I can stand up on the paddleboard. It's easy. My lab, that dude we're doing a wheelie because he's like wanting to be next to me on the paddleboard. It's just silly, but he likes water. So, hey, I really appreciate you guys. Again, thank you so very much. We will definitely catch you on the next one.